Noem is touring the state today, talking with folks in Madison, Mitchell, and Winter.
The governor's visit to Mitchell included signing a bill step that aimed at addressing South Dakota's low teacher pay. Our Cooper Seamer joining us with a State House 2024 update. Hey, Cooper.
Yeah, Sam and Hannah, Senate Bill 127 is the result of months of conversations and meetings between lawmakers, education advocates, and the Department of Education on trying to find a way to put more money into the hands of South Dakota's teachers. That bill officially became law today. With the stroke of a pen, Senate Bill 127 now goes into effect, changing how school districts in South Dakota allocate money for teacher pay and compensation. The bill sets a minimum teacher salary of $45,000 a year and sets an average compensation amount unique to each school district. Both benchmarks will increase at a rate nearly equal to what the state legislature allocates for future spending increases.
We did a lot of listening and working on this bill. I had more meetings on this bill than any other bill all session, talking to school folks, talking to legislators from all over the state.
It's not going to have a dramatic change in 1 year because they go into effect over several years. But once they get into effect and over time, they're going to have a very significant effect on teacher pay in South Dakota.
Because it was going to be a very different and normal.
Governor Noem says the bill is meant to make school districts more accountable in taking those funding increases from the state and directly translating it into salary increases. The governor says her next goal is to work with South Dakota's tribes with education issues on the reservations like attendance and graduation rates.
What can I do to get a tribe to participate with me to help their kids be more successful? Because they live with 80 to 90% unemployment. Their kids don't have any hope. They don't have parents who show up and help them.
Noem says tribes have not been willing to work with her to do so, adding that tribal governments have been hostile toward her. Public schools on reservations fall under different funding sources and structure, both from the Bureau of Indian Education and the tribes themselves, as well as participating in some state programs.
So I'm going to continue to do that, and that's where my focus is, and give them more options and more opportunities.
The minimum salary component of Senate Bill 127 goes into effect on July 1st of 2026, and the average teacher compensation increase requirement will start with the fiscal year in 2025. Sam and Hannah.
All right, Cooper, thank you. And time